Hello everyone, welcome back to TrekChat. Star Trek Las Vegas was fairly interesting this year. Not something I've ever been able to attend myself, whole way across the country for me. It's great to be able to access online official things and some people posting their own videos and pictures, the experience, be able to see a lot of the panels and see what's going on and what announcements have been made, and getting a real sense and feeling of where Star Trek is, both from the artistic standpoint and the more business production side standpoint. You get kind of a vibe from the way questions are answered and what's revealed, and getting a sense of where a lot of the real passionate, hardcore fans are at. And this year, the vibe seemed to be incredibly positive, looking at the future of Star Trek, much more than it has been in a very long time, with this new merger with Paramount and Skydance and what's going on under possible new leadership. And again, there's so much that's all speculation, but there's been a lot that's been pushed, a lot of ideas, and a great sense of potential change emanating from the event this time. One of the biggest things, obviously, is the concept of Star Trek Legacy, something that doesn't really exist, but something that is a real unifying force behind both the idea and more so what it represents. The ending of Star Trek Picard Season 3 perfectly set up a brand new series that was, even at the time, not something that was guaranteed to come into existence, but it kind of set it up in a manner to where it could be launching Star Trek finally back into an era that is true to its core, honors its legacy while still breaking new ground and really being a true continuation of that vision of humanism and curiosity and exploring the potential of mankind while exploring the far corners of our galaxy and beyond in a way that is moving the story forward as well, rather than the constant retreading of eras that have already been explored. It really is the representation of the Star Trek legacy. Of course, a lot of fans, myself included, would love to see that literal setup, the Enterprise G with Captain Seven and that whole crew and everything that was set up with the end of Star Trek Picard. I'd love for that to be the literal thing that we see on screen going forward. But even if not, more just the spirit that is imbued within that concept. And there's been a lot of talk about that more seriously too, not just a discussion from fans about what we want to see Star Trek return as if this era does come to an end and there is kind of a shake-up under new leadership. Not only did you have a very strong presence from fans in Las Vegas, there's been ongoing letter writing campaign and all kinds of organized efforts to get the message out there of what the majority of that real core fan base, the people that are going to be supporting your franchise for decades to come, that are going to be buying the merchandise, the audience that, if you want the money, that's where you go for, what a lot of those people are looking forward to. And then you even had, Terry on stage talking about presenting that concept as well to new leadership and the possibility of that actually being a reality, not something that is just this far-flung dream, but how it could actually exist. And that was interesting to hear spoken about in that manner, not just a hey, that would be cool, but this is something that's being proposed as something that's not out of the realm of possibility. And there was a big feeling of that throughout the whole thing as well, being the 30th anniversary celebration of Voyager, looking back at Voyager and really taking that into the concept of continuing the legacy of TNG, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager through something like a legacy or a show in that manner, even if not exactly that concept. And Scott Bakula was back for the first time since, I believe, 2016. It was interesting to see that and to listen to him talk. He's always very personable and fun to hear on stage, and talking about the idea of wanting to give more of a bit of on-screen closure, not just within the books, to Enterprise after the largely disappointing ending to season 4 and not getting the continuation of that series, to give it even just a limited return to honor the legacy of that series, especially how the perception of Enterprise has changed over time. In comparison to a lot of the modern Star Trek, this whole era of Star Trek, there has been some good. It has not been all terrible, but it has been very slapshot and largely disappointing, and it's been really sad to see in comparison to older stuff. And I think that's part of why Enterprise has changed its reputation. Though I think it was a great show from the beginning, but I think the comparison of Enterprise to what has come since Enterprise makes it look even better. It's like, wow, that this was a show that was underappreciated in its time, and there is that possibility, it's at least being thrown out there, of a return with a President Archer series or something to kind of honor that legacy. It's not out of the question. And multiple people, especially Simon Pegg, talking about even like a fourth Kelvin movie possibility. He's been talking about that for years and has really been at the forefront of trying to get that done. And even that idea seemed like it was less off the table than it had been in years prior. So there was just this overwhelming sense of positivity for the future, not disparaging or dishonoring what good there has been from this current era of Star Trek, because there has been some, but realizing that it's kind of had its run, needs to wind down, and we need a fresh take and a fresh start for Star Trek, looking into the future and in a manner that's more akin to 66 through 2005 era classic Star Trek. And it's been nice to see that, especially when you get some really horrendous ideas thrown out there for the near future of Star Trek. Producer Akiva Goldsman talking about his Star Trek Year One concept as a follow-up to Strange New Worlds, and is one of the least inspirational and just unbelievably undesirable concepts for a new Star Trek series that I've ever heard. The idea of just turning Strange New Worlds into a bit of a TOS remake to fill in the gap, as they said, the beginnings of TOS, fill in every little piece of that time period unnecessarily with something that's going to feel very unoriginal and uninteresting, instead of making Star Trek again about looking towards the future and seeing the potential of humanity fulfilled. And it really just speaks to a lack of creativity, a lack of any kind of great vision that has been hurting the franchise in recent years, and more of a decision from an ease of financial and planning perspectives. Something that would really just be, you already have the majority of that cast in place. You would really just be using the existing Strange New World sets with maybe a little bit of minor redesigns. Is something that is just kind of using what we already have again to push out another year of content. And it seems like an idea that is just just going to be an unnecessary stretching of the remaining pieces left over from the end of Strange New Worlds when it ends with their short season 5. Just terrible idea. And so it was nice to see in Vegas that feel of overwhelming love for Star Trek as more than something that's just for entertainment. It's more than just a silly sci-fi show. It is something that has true meaning and has changed countless lives and is such a part of so many people. And more than just kind of fun entertainment, it's something that portrays an optimistic philosophy that a lot of people have come to live by, and to see a world that they want humanity to eventually become, even when it seems impossible at times. Having that hopeful, optimistic futurism in an entertaining fashion that explores all the elements of humanity to its deepest cores, the primal elements of storytelling that are explored in all types of fiction, as well as current topical dilemmas through the lens of science fiction, be able to explore it in that fashion, and kind of returning Star Trek to its prime and seeing a hope for that future being alive and well was really cool. And hopefully, what is left of this era of Star Trek does turn out really well. You never know how great things could be. Maybe we'll end on a real high note. That would be fantastic. I'd love for a show like Stranger Worlds to really kind of go out with a bang and cement like a really strong legacy with fans of the show in the future. I would love that. I never want to see a Star Trek show fail. Whether I like it or not, I always hope that at least for the people that do like it, it ends up being great. That's always my perspective. But I do hope that, again, we see very shortly, 2026 by the end, maybe beginning of 2027 at the latest. I really hope we see things kind of wrap up and get a fresh start and a fresh perspective under new leadership, some real guidance, some real planning of like a roadmap of where the franchise is going to go in the future. But it seems like the leadership from this merger does want to see Star Trek continue to be one of the IPs at the front of its portfolio, so that is good, and hopefully that leads to some really good decision making and the right people put in charge and a hopeful future for the franchise.